Hi, it's Karen with Living Our Dream Homestead, where today we're going to be making steamed chocolate pudding with a vanilla sauce. Well, I don't know about you, with it being New Year's Eve, I kind of want something different, kind of special, and this is very special. So we are going to be using a mold today. Now, I don't know if anybody has ever used one of these before. It has to have a lid with it and tight fitting. These straps come up on the sides. It's called steamed chocolate pudding. It's not actually chocolate pudding. You put the ingredients in our mold here, and then we will put the lid on, and then we will put it in a pot, and we'll have to have our water go up at least halfway, and we are going to boil that water and we are going to steam it. And when it comes out, it won't be pudding consistency. It will be a cake. So it is definitely special because it will take, oh gosh, about an hour and a half to steam it in the pot. So let's go ahead and get started. The first thing we're going to need to do is we need to go over here on the stovetop, so let's go. First thing we need to get is a small pan. And in it I have 6 tablespoons of unsalted butter. And to this butter, we are going to go ahead and add in 3 squares of unsweetened chocolate. Now, I'm using Baker's unsweetened chocolate, and if you look on the back here, it says 4 square pieces equals 1 ounce. So we're going to need 3 ounces. So that would be 1 there, 2 here, 3. So this will be left in the bar. So I'll go ahead and break this off and then put it into our pan. Now that I've got the chocolate into our pan, I've got my heat not on medium, but in between medium and low. We are going to melt the chocolate and the butter. As our chocolate and butter melts, just go ahead and stir to combine. Now that the chocolate and the butter is completely melted, we need to go ahead and turn off the heat and remove the pot from the burner. We are going to take this mixture and we are going to pour it into a mixing bowl. I'm using a large mixing bowl. You may not have to use a large, but at least a medium to a large. Now that we have our melted unsweetened chocolate in our bowl, we are going to add to it 1 cup of granulated cane sugar. We are also going to add in 2 large eggs. Then we are going to go ahead and stir to combine. Now that all those ingredients are mixed together, we are going to add in 2/3 cup of milk. I'm using 2% milk. You could use whole milk if you had it. And then we need to go ahead and add in 2 teaspoons of pure vanilla extract. And then we need to go ahead and stir to combine. Make sure to stir slowly, otherwise, most of the liquid here from the milk will end up splattering. That's why I kind of chose a really, really large bowl so it won't splatter over the bowl. So again, just, do it slowly and eventually all of it will get incorporated. Next to this mixture, we're going to add in 2 cups of all-purpose flour, 3 teaspoons of baking powder, and then 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Then we use our spoon to stir to combine. Now that all those ingredients are mixed up, we are going to push it aside. And now we're going to take our mold and we are going to go ahead and use some butter, and we are going to butter the inside completely. Now that I've got my mold completely greased, again, I used unsalted butter, and I made sure that this was completely covered because we don't want it to stick. We are going to go ahead and take our steamed chocolate pudding batter, and we are going to go ahead and put it into our mold. I do want to show you with the batter, it's not like a typical cake batter where it's runny. It's more like a dry, you're kind of just spooning it out and then putting it into your mold. Well, I'll go ahead and continue to work on this. Kind of like that. Again, you don't want to fill it up to the top because it's going to have to expand. Now we'll go ahead and put on our lid, and I will clamp it down. I'm going to have to use 2 hands for that. And then we'll get ready to put it into our boiling pot of water. I'm just using my water bather. This is a large pot. It has to have a rack on the bottom when you put the mold in. And the water, it's probably hard to see. It's not up to the top, but it has to be at least halfway. I think mine's about 3/4 of the way, which will be fine. I need to go ahead and get the water boiling. And then I'm going to turn down the heat to just like a gentle boil with the lid on. And then we will steam it. Now that I've got my water boiling, I'm actually going to turn it down a little bit. We want to do a gentle boil, and we are going to boil our steamed chocolate pudding for 1.5 hours with the lid on. Then I will show you when it's done. Now it's normal if you see the water be a little bit brown because some of it probably did leak out. I might have had my water a little bit too much. So I've lowered my temperature on my pot. Again, we do want it boiling, but not hard boiling. Be careful removing the pot from, the hot water. If it's got a hook on it, you can just easily lift it out of there. And now we need to let it sit in the pot for 10 minutes before we'll unmold it. Now that it's been 10 minutes, we need to go ahead and loosen the sides so that we'll be able to remove the lid. Now, maybe a little bit harder because I had some of the stuff come out. So I'll go ahead and work on it. I'll have to put like a little knife around the sides here to get off the lid. Here's what I'm talking about. I had to turn it upside down since, you saw some of the water was brown, so some of the steamed chocolate pudding was going into the water. This is kind of hardened here, so I'm going to go ahead and take a knife to try to loosen this up. And then I'm going to flip it back over and see if I can get the steamed chocolate pudding out of the mold. Now that I got the lid off, and it worked well using a knife and going down on the lid all the way around, and then eventually I heard it was like almost a suction, it just released and I was able to remove the lid. So now I'm going to just take a knife and just barely go a little bit around it, and then I'm going to turn it upside down and put it on the platter. Here's the steamed chocolate pudding. It ends up making a beautiful cake. I don't know about you, that to me is just this looks elegant like it is. Now again, you could serve it with whipped cream if you like, but we're going to go ahead right now and start that homemade vanilla sauce to go over top. First thing we need a saucepan, and in it I put 1 can of sweetened condensed milk. And now I'm going to add in 1 tablespoon of butter. Now I'm just using unsalted butter. And now we're going to go ahead and put in 2 teaspoons of pure vanilla extract, and then along with 2 tablespoons of milk. Now I'm just using 2% milk because that's what I had. If you had whole milk, that would be even better. I'm going to go ahead and stir these to combine and put that vanilla extract in. Your heat needs to be on medium heat. We're letting the butter melt as we stir all the other ingredients. It should all come together, and when it starts to look smooth and silky, then we'll know it's almost done. I'll work on this. Now that the vanilla sauce looks more silky and all that butter has melted into our sauce, we are going to immediately turn off the heat and remove it from the burner. I'm going to go ahead and pour mine into a measuring cup and pour it over the steamed chocolate pudding. All right, let me go ahead and see if I can pour some of this over our steamed chocolate pudding. Now this would be great for like a bread pudding if you wanted to. Now I'm not going to put the whole thing over, but I just want to show you the gist of it. Like so. Doesn't that look delicious? Well, let's go ahead and have a taste test. Here it is after you take a piece. The piece is pretty thin, but again, you could make it thicker if you want. But I just think this dessert is more of a showstopper dessert. Well, let's go ahead and try this steamed chocolate pudding. It's delicious. It's not too rich. So it's, you do taste like a subtle chocolate flavor. It's not dry. It's actually moist. And again, you don't have to make this vanilla sauce. I just saw this one and I thought because most people have sweetened condensed milk on their shelf more than say heavy cream, but you could also make a different sauce with heavy cream or just put some whipped cream on it. Or even ice cream. I just think it makes a fabulous dessert. Well, the sauce itself, you need to go ahead and cover it and you can store it up into the fridge for about 1 week. And since I covered it, the cake, then of course the cake would have to be stored in the refrigerator as well. I found the recipe in my Fannie Farmer Cookbook. I've had this since I was 18 years old. And like I said, I tried a new recipe every week, just so that I could get more familiar with things. Because of course I was just young starting out. I wanted to try things. Now this is actually one of my son's favorite desserts. I actually made it for him when he was about 2.5 years old. And that mold that you were looking at, I ended up getting that. That is probably 27 years old, but you can get them on Amazon. Well, I hope everyone has a happy new year. This was Karen with Living Our Dream Homestead. I hope you have a good day.